Hey guys, Ace here and welcome to C++ tutorial number 22. Today we're going to be looking at the string class. So we already know how to form strings using character arrays, but because character arrays can be really quite fiddly a lot of the time, C++, as an improvement on C, has an inbuilt string class which makes handling strings a lot easier. Okay? The first thing you actually need to do to be able to use strings is include the string library, like you see there. Okay? And you can now start using strings. It's important to know that strings are part of the std namespace, so if you're not using the using namespace std it's not function, command, then you'll have to prefix every time you type string with std : like this. So every time you declare a string, you have to type it. Okay, basically. That's all you need to know for now. So to declare a string, you just type std string, so the type, and then you just type the variable name. Strings act pretty much exactly the same as variables, so you can declare and define on separate lines, like you see here. Yeah, okay, sorry, just blanked for a minute there. You can declare and define on the same line, like you see here. And let's just take a look at what that does before we cover the next thing. As you can see, pretty simple, outputs exactly what we assigned it to. Now, inputting into a string is a lot easier than character input because strings have variable sizes of, they don't have to have a set size. They're not like arrays where you have to have the same size as soon as you declare it, okay, and all throughout the program. So you don't actually have to worry about overflowing the buffer when you get input from a user. You don't have to worry about it. So to input it into a string, you just declare the string, type std_sin greater than the string name, and that's it, pretty much. So you can see here, I'm just going to input df, and it will output as well, because I set it to output. Okay. Now, if you want to limit the size, the amount of characters the user can input, there is a way to do that. It's pretty simple. Because as far as I know, the only function I know at least is that can limit the size that the user is allowed to input is sin.get, or sin.getLine, all those variations on it. And those functions can only take character arrays. It's still pretty simple though. All you gotta do is declare a character array. So here I'm declaring character array with 10 characters called input, and I'm assigning the null terminating character to all those 10. And now you see something which you haven't actually seen before, and this might solve a problem a lot of you have been having recently. I know I've been having it. So we have stdsin.sync. Okay. Now sometimes, if we have an input here, if we don't clear out the buffer, by the way, the buffer is where all the stuff we input is stored by the computer. If we don't clear out the buffer, what happens is sometimes those characters can be left in the buffer, and then when it comes to actually inputting when it comes to the second input statement, it could accidentally take the characters from the buffer that are still in there and use them as the input for this, and for that reason it will close the program. It just crashes. So to stop this happening, we have to use stdsin.sync, which gets rid of all those trailing characters. Okay. So anyway, we're declaring a string called realString. We're declaring the character array. We're syncing the input buffer, and we're getting into the character array first, limiting it to 9 characters for the null terminating character, remember. And then we're just simply saying real string is equal to the input character array. Okay, and we're outputting real string. Let's give this a go. So the first one, we've got this first input df, yeah, blah blah blah. And the second one, there we go. Let's have a look at what it does if we go over 9 though, okay? Actually, I'm just going to... actually, I'll do from here, because I don't want the output popping up all the time. Okay, so let's take a look at what it does if we input over more than 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, so it crashes basically as we would expect when inputting into character array. And yeah, that's pretty much it, really. Crashes. So that's just how you can limit the amount of input you get into a string. The reason I'm not just using character arrays and I'm putting it back into a string is because, as I said at the beginning, strings are a lot easier to use, so it's probably a good idea to get the input through a character array so you can limit the number of characters, but then put it back into a string so it's easier to use. You don't have to fill around with it so much. Okay, let's comment this out. I'll just extend the comment like that. So strings, because they're actually classes, they're not a primitive type. They have what are called constructors. Now, we're not going to cover constructors in depth at the moment, but basically what it means is when you normally when you declare a variable, you type the variable type, like so here, you type the name of the variable, and then you either put a semicolon and you define it later, or you put an equals sign and then you can define it on the same line, like we've done here and like we've done here as well. Okay, but because because string is a class, we can actually assign to it using either brackets, actually, like this. And this works for actually any primitive type. You can type int myint 5, and that will initialize it to the variable myint to 5. So you can either do se string rand string hello, like that, which is basically the same as doing this. Okay, they're exactly the same. It's just, if you prefer it this way, do it that way. If you prefer it this way, do it that way. I prefer using the equals, but in this case we're using parentheses because we're actually supplying two things that will change how the string is initialized. So basically, the first parameter we supply is the size of the string, okay? So this will make a string called full of ones and give it a space of 20. No, that's not the maximum space, that's just the starting space, okay? And then we just supply a character and it will assign to all 20 places that character. So here, because it's called full of ones, I assigned 20 starting places and gave them all those starting places ones. Just so you know, these parameters have to be together. If you don't have the character parameter, it won't work. It will throw an error. Okay. Because if you do it like this, whoops. If you do it like this, it thinks you're trying to assign an int to a string. Because remember when I showed you can make ints like this, you can assign to them like that. Basically, what it thinks you're trying to do here is assign the integer value 20 to a string, which isn't possible. You'd have to put it between quotes if you wanted to do that, and then you just have the value 20 in your string. You wouldn't actually have 20 places. So yeah, it doesn't actually work unless you supply the character. Okay, so that's just a way you can initialize